On this video, we are discussing the history of coffee. Hey peeps! My name is Theo Le Roux and I'm from Cupocafe Coffee Bar. In this video, we are discussing the history of coffee. Now there's loads to be read on the internet around the history of coffee. So I'm not going to bore you with all the final details because I want to tell you the three basic stories about coffee, how coffee was discovered. The funny thing is we don't really know who discovered coffee, or should I say, everybody assumes it was the goat herder who discovered the coffee. But in my opinion, it was the goat. If it wasn't for the goat herder would have never found it. So, where does coffee come from? There's three basic stories, and I'm going to tell you all three stories. The one story for me tells the best. Now, if you've watched some of my videos, you might have heard some of this. So just skip to wherever I go into the other stories. So coffee was discovered between the 5th and the 11th century. Why such a big gap? Well, I don't know. I wasn't there. So if your story is different from mine, go argue with whoever wrote on Google, because I'm just retelling the stories that I've read and heard. So the first story is there was this goat herder, Caldi, who took his goats into the mountains to go and herd every single day. This one specific day, instead of going down the mountain with his goats, he decided to go up the mountain. Now the way that this Caldi got his goats to follow him was he was playing the flute. And as he plays the flute, they kept on running after him. But as soon as he stops playing the flute, they would go and play. So this specific day, instead of going down the mountain, he decided to go up. He came to this certain place, found a tree like every single other time, sat down, stopped playing the flute of course, pulled his hat down and caught a little nap. His goats would then run into the field and go and play and eat grass and eat leaves and whatever they can find and just enjoy themselves. A few hours later, Caldi would wake up and he would then blow on his flute and all of his goats come back to him. This specific day was different. Caldi blew on his flute and did not see any goats. So he got up and he started walking in the direction of where he heard his goats playing. And as he came closer, he noticed that they were playing around these specific trees. These specific trees. And on these trees were these small little red cherries. And they were not just playing, but actually eating these little red cherries. So they seemed to have a lot more energy. They seemed more energetic. So he decided to walk closer, grab one of the cherries and stick it in his mouth. He then records what he tasted was this funny sweetish, sourish flavor coming out of this cherry, and the longer he chewed it, the more bitter it became. As he then started walking back towards his village down the mountain, he noticed that he started feeling more energetic, more focused, more relaxed, and he started playing the flute even more fluently. So he got then back down to the village, went to the high priest and said, "You need to taste this. This stuff is amazing. It even makes you feel really cool." So he gave the high priest or the monk some of those cherries, and the monk then established that these red cherries shall be used in the churches, in the mosques, in the temples for praise and worship as well, because it calmed them, it focused them, and it gave them the ability to praise and worship for hours on end. So that was the one story that, in my opinion, tells the best, how coffee was discovered. And therefore, I always use it. You've probably heard me tell that story. From there, obviously, it went up to Turkey, into Europe, and into the rest of the world. Now, the second story is slightly different. The story is that there were a few wise men from the East who was on a journey through the desert, through Saudi Arabia. And when they got into Yemen, one night they noticed, or they realized, that they ran out of food. And the one guy was like, I'm hungry, I need something to eat. And so they went to bed that night, hungry, not eaten anything. The story, or the legend, then goes on with a light coming down to them in the desert and saying to them, wake up, you have gone to sleep with no food, but I can help with that. If you get up and you walk in that direction, you'll find a tree, and the tree has these small little red cherries on them. If you take these cherries, wash them, dry them, and roast them, and you drink it after you've roasted it, it will give you what they call kahwai or kohwa. And kohwai meant to lose your hunger. So it kind of suppressed the hunger that they had, and it gave them a better stomach and obviously a higher blood flow to get through the desert to a place where there was food. Now, to this day, if you go to Saudi Arabia, they still call coffee kahwa. So that's a cool story, and it's a great legend. But for me, it's kind of boring. So sorry, no offense, but it's still a cool story. The third story, I would probably think is the closest to the truth. Again, I don't know, so please don't argue with me. This is just a retell of the story. So the third story also plays off in Ethiopia around the 8th century. Also, the goat herder, Kaldi, went into the mountains. The goats found it. He took it back to the temple, which the high priest then took it to the king and said to the king, King, we give you this offering of these red cherries. If you eat them, it makes you energetic and you feel really great. So the king then took these cherries and gave them to, of course, the people who work in his kitchen, which, you know, is all the young men and the grown men. No, of course not. Men were out in the field. That's why the goat herder discovered the little cherry. So who worked in the kitchens? The people with the small feet? No, just kidding. So obviously women worked in the kitchen. So they say that the black African female was actually the very first person to take that cherry, break it open, create a juice out of the actual cherry juice of itself, took these little green beans, roasted them on fire, and then presented this blackish liquid, which we call black gold, to the king. And then the king proclaimed it as a must beverage every single day before your day starts. And that's where it got its worth as a commodity. Now, that story to me obviously makes more logic sense, and it flows into the story that tells nice. So thank you, Ethiopian women, for giving us the great commodity as black gold so that we can enjoy a high energetic, focused and very relaxed emotion every single day. So guys, if you've heard a different version of the story, please down in the comments below hit a link so I can go and read up on that. I'm always open to learn more about coffee. So those are the common historical stories of coffee. Now, what's more important than that? What coffee does for us. Coffee in general has a way to bring people together. So I believe that between the 5th and the 11th century, people fell in love with coffee. Not just because of the feeling that coffee gave, but because of the fact that coffee brought us together. So in today's life, you might have your business meeting around a cup of coffee. You might take your first date for a cup of coffee. Or you might just bring your loved ones to the table to enjoy a beautiful cup of coffee together. So guys, the history and the love of coffee. If you guys are watching this, give us a thumbs up because YouTube appreciates it. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button after you've watched a few of our other videos and you actually enjoy it. Hit the little bell notification as well, so you know that when we upload. And then of course, why we make these. We make these videos so that you can love coffee more and hopefully drink more coffee. See you guys on the next video.